So the Rays at 29. I've struggled with this, and this is one of the ones that I've kind of pinpointed, and I've struggled with as soon as you and I decided that we were going to do this, and I was going to be the odds. Because the Rays are very much like they just sit back and wait to see who falls to them. They've got to I see the Rays as a team that they've simulated 10,000 times how the draft might go. And every possible guy that might fall to them, they've simulated his development 10,000 times, and they know exactly what every single player is worth. And I don't know anything about that. But I do know that they're good at developing arms. So I've got a super unique guy, great metrics, a lot of potential, needs refinement. Noah Schultz, the prep lefty from Oswego East. Just something where didn't pitch a lot this spring, had a lot of high buzz. I think he had some sort of illness or something. I don't know if it was mono or something, but anyway, something where they see the talent's fallen to them. They know that he needs a little bit of more refinement. He missed out on most of his senior year. Noah Schultz to Tampa Bay.
I just want to throw out there that I've discussed him as potentially that hidden arm to Kansas City, right? They love size. They love pitching. Just as one of those we were discussing, not knowing if Kansas City wants their next Frank Mazzucato, it might be Schultz, just to throw that out there.
Top 10,
So the Giants.
Also, sorry.
Go first.
Also, the second pick that the Mets have. Something where they can say, hey, we already have our first round guy. We can afford to throw a lottery pick at a guy like a Schultz who was projected to be really high, didn't perform his senior year. We can try that as well. So another guy who might be a value play there. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. So the Giants, one of their most successful picks has been Kyle Harrison. There's been a lot written on him. But in spite of his success, they have been a college-heavy team. Oh, yeah. So they did, they've got this one guy that they targeted. It's been great success. But I'm still leaning college with them. And as you're looking at, who are the top college talents, who are the guys who could potentially make sense, looking at their recent drafts, it's been a little bit more with safety. If you're Patrick Bailey was a recent high pick. Mm-hmm. Last year was Bednar, who had the great, postseason, but, brother was a pitcher, and then they went with the Fordham pitcher, and then went Mason Black. I mean, they went one could argue they took 3 relievers in a row to start their draft last year. So
wild, absolutely wild.
What is the top college performer left? And I think for me, it's I'm looking at, we talked about, I've talked about my podcast. You got Parada, who is the bat with the questionable glove. You got Susac, who's the kind of in-between option. There's Logan Tanner, then, who's the glove but questionable bat. You've got, the Jordan Beck is still out there. Sterling Thompson, outfielder, Florida, is still out there. Jude Fabien is still out there. And I've thrown all of these names out there just to not pick any of them and go with Peyton Graham, the shortstop from Oklahoma, because of positional value. Now, again, I'm not necessarily sure he's going to be a shortstop, but I think he's an infielder. And he's he's had a really good last few weeks. So he's doing himself some favors. Now, the Cape Cod wasn't necessarily the best. That can be an issue for some, but there's a lot of, versatility. There's a lot of things you could play as a super utility. I mean, at this point in the draft, you're looking at a team that's going to look at the value of the performance. And I think the performance, especially late in the season, has been there.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that feels like, regionals and through the tournament, he's shot up in value and climbed the boards. I saw stuff just 2 weeks ago that had him in the 50s. And I can see now, I mean, I've already seen things coming out today and yesterday that were he's played himself into a possible first round consideration. So I think that's a good pick. This was a full 2 days of shows for us. We're going to be updating this, obviously, as we get closer and closer to the draft. I know that there's one thing I've noticed. It's that people on YouTube love to see mock draft content for MLB. They are all over it on YouTube. So
my one question to you, just to throw this out there, is we are at 1 hour and 4 minutes. If we're chopping these up at about 28 minutes a show, it's about 90. Do we just do the next 8 to get us through Comp A, and then that could be 3? Do we consider doing it? Do you have the time to do that?
I guess we can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would give us 3 shows because we're so close to 3 in terms of our
Yeah.
overall minutes. It might make sense
Let me
to
go
just
pull up the.
consider it. I mean, you would be up with Colorado for Trevor Story. Um, but what's interesting, I think, at this point is just the names. Like, we mentioned all those college players. Mickey Romero is someone I feel like will go in the first round. He's still on the board. So I'm going through my little handwritten list over here. Robbie Snelling, is someone who people are like top 20 talent.
Yeah.
We don't have him just because of pitching. So it could be interesting. And then for Guardians fans, hey, Guardians have the 37th pick.
Y'all are in there. Okay.
Maybe, do you want to switch to odds or switch it up, go crazy? So then I would have the Guardians odd pick.
Oh, we can do that, I guess. Okay.
Are you okay with that?
That's fine.
So I guess now that I've convinced you.
Yeah. So you do 30 and then you do 31. I'll take 32. So, all right.
Yes.
All right. So here we go. We're going to do a cut real quick and then we're going to start. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone who's still tuning in. Day 3 of this mock draft. I guess we'll see where we do the cuts. This might actually be in the middle of day 3 of the episode, but we've got the minutes. We got the time. People love mocks. Guardians fans, I know they would want to hear the supplemental pick. So I was able to convince Lindsay to come back and do this. I'm switching to odds so I can handle the Guardians again. With the first pick.
But that also means he gets the Royals at 35.
I do get the Royals. So get ready for Robert Moore there.
Yeah. I'll pencil it
in. 31 Rockies. We talked about them going for ceiling in the first round, taking Crawford there. Last year, for instance, if I pull up their data, in 2021, after Benny Montgomery, they followed that up with Jaden Hill, the high ceiling left or right-hander who had been hurt and hadn't had a chance to pitch. It's like one of those guys who had first round run. They took one of my favorite second round picks in the comp round with Joe Rock, the Ohio lefty who missed a ton of bats. And then after Benny Montgomery, this is my way of saying they only took college players. Right? They took the high school guy and then only college guys. And traditionally, until these last few years, this was a very college heavy drafting team. So we are at this point in the draft where I am going to lean into college guys. And I believe Jordan Beck is still there, right?
Beck is still there.
Yeah. So they like power. They've always drafted power. They like big guys, big athleticism, big power. I know it's a lot of outfielders, but when you're looking at the board, it's Beck or it's Fabien. I think I lean Beck at this point in time for them just as the guy who's a little bit higher on most boards. It's not traditional to do back-to-back outfielders, but I think that's where kind of right now we're seeing the talent match up, at least in my opinion. I got to spend some more time on the college pitching class. Like I'd have to go look at like Thomas Harrington, Justin Campbell, just see if they have a sinker because we know they need that sinker to be successful in Colorado before I would commit to a pitcher there.
Yeah. And then this is just a really interesting situation and an interesting guy that I like here for the Reds. And I can't really articulate why I like him for the Reds. I just do for some reason. Eric Brown, the shortstop from Coastal Carolina. So was one of those like high volatility, high ceiling. It feels like if you're an organization that is letting talent leave and you've got prospects and you are not going to pay for stars, you have to take guys that have high ceilings, but that means they're going to be volatile. And that is what Eric Brown is. He might not even stick at shortstop, but fantastic velocity, like exit velos. He's insanely athletic. He's been streaky this year, and I think that's why he falls down into comp round A. But Eric Brown, the shortstop from Coastal Carolina.
No, makes a lot of sense right there. I would have considered him with the next pick, honestly. Baltimore is here. Now, the way this plays out is, kind of the fun is we get to kind of go back and discuss what happened. And since they didn't go massively under slot, they don't necessarily have as much money to spend with this selection as if they had gone another direction. So if I'm just like looking at the name value, looking who's there, why not give them the guy that they wanted a year ago but couldn't sign? Why not give him the guy that supposedly was their second round target, Jude Fabien? He's sitting there. He's a guy they apparently liked a lot, and he's done everything right this year. He's cut down on a strikeout rate. I get he has never hit for average, but I think he can be a plus defender in center field with plus power potential. This is a game anymore where you don't necessarily need to hit 300 to be successful. You don't even need to hit 240 to be successful. And I think Jude Fabien can do that. I think he can, be a low average, big power plus Kevin. I don't want to compare anyone to Kevin Kiermaier with the defensive ability, but like a light version of him, maybe. But I think, again, we know he was highly connected to them a year ago. He is sitting there. I think he could sneak into the first round, but where he is right now, I think it'd be hard for Baltimore to say no.
That is that makes perfect sense. Actually, I don't know why I hadn't put that together myself yet until now, but that makes perfect sense. I'm going back and checking real quick because I'm surprised. I just now realized he's still on the board. I thought he was taken already. So my next pick, Arizona Diamondbacks. You look at what do they need? Like, I feel like they have a ton of position player prospects coming up recently, but something that they're working on still is pitching. You've seen what the pitching coach has done. You've seen what kind of like the corner that they've turned this year. There's Merrill Kelly, even Bumgarner, looking like the Bumgarner of old. So I had to go back and check 3 times. I thought he was taken already. Justin Campbell, the righty from Oklahoma State, somebody who exceptional fastball, a couple different breaking balls. I think that under that pitching coach, they can take him and they might think that they can get their ace right here in the second round or in the comp round A. So Justin Campbell, I want to see what they do with him.
He's a model darling as well. Mm-hmm. I will say that. Kansas City. So we had them going bat in the first round, right?
Yes, they took Gavin Cross.
So they love pitching. They took the 2 prep arms a year ago, and this is actually a point in time where the prep pitching is fantastic. So I think that Dayton Moore would love Robbie Snelling here. The lefty who's rising, the 2-sport athlete who could have played college football as well. You're looking at like him and Jackson Ferris are probably the biggest names. Also, I'm going to change it. I'm going against this. I'm going to go with Andrew Dudkanyevich the 4th, whose name I know I got wrong. And I'm switching it because there was that year that they took Watson and Ash Russell from Indiana. Mm-hmm. So they had a year where they took back-to-back Indiana prep arms. So I'm going to go with the big Indiana prep arm who, I've seen people mock him into the teens as well. So I'm going to maybe go against the board and just be like, hey, they have a history with Indiana. Let's let him, maybe they get it right this time, as neither of those players, Nolan Watson is what I want to say, and Ash Russell. So maybe they get it right this time, but we know it's a state that they scout heavily.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I like that. Okay, so I'm just checking to make sure this guy's still here because another guy who I thought was this is the story of this draft. Is there's so many guys, college guys, who you're like, I figured he'd have been picked by now, and he's not been picked by now. A guy like a Judd Fabien who fell out of the first round when he was considered to be one of the better outfielders going into the draft out of college. So I'm looking for the Pirates here. Up the middle, premium position. They're going to have a decision to make at some point in time on their center field situation. And a lot of their prospects are infield prospects. Outfielder Jacob Melton of Oregon State. I thought I had taken him earlier, and I had not. So one of the better performers on one of the better teams, leads them in home runs. Isn't a great swing, but he's still hitting like 375, 440, 700 is a slash line. 20 plus stolen bases. I want to say he's close to 20 home runs. I think he's 15 or 17 or something like that. So Jacob Melton to the Pirates.
So we're back to the Guardians. There's a few interesting names to follow here. Robbie Snelling, we talked about the 2-sport athlete, another 2-sport athlete being Owen Murphy, who's been had some connections. Walter Ford is the 17-year-old, one of the youngest players in the class who's an athlete. And for me, it kind of comes down to, is it Ford or do they go to the college route? And I'm kind of leaning college here, and I'm going with Thomas Harrington from Campbell. Now, my one thing that holds me back is that he's a draft eligible sophomore, and this is not an organization that has taken many of those.
Yeah.
Going back through the history, like I literally had this debate this week on the thing, and I think that age models aren't a big fan of draft eligible sophomores because it means that they've always kind of been the old guy in their class, that they've always been a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. But, he's a small school guy. He's got the slider and the changeup, which we know this is a team that looks at secondary offerings. They're not going to be bothered by the fact he's 6'2" and a righty, which a few years ago for a lot of teams would have been an issue. And Harrington's a guy who's got a little bit of helium late, and for a team that sometimes waits till the second or third round to kind of splash in with their savings. We saw them, save the money with Carson Tucker the last time they had a high pick, save money with Tanner Burns, and then Logan Allen, and then their, Milan Tolentino and some of those other guys, where they spent that money. So this might also be a chance to get a little bit more savings early before coming back with some bigger picks later on. But Harrington is a guy who makes sense as a connection with them.
I like it. I like Harrington. All right, so 38 to the Rockies.
A lot of picks that they own this draft, huh?
Yes, they have. They have a lot of stuff here. They have Justin Crawford already. They have Jordan Beck already. So they've taken 2 outfielders already. And I hate to double up from a school, but I'm thinking about how a lot of breaking pitches don't look great at altitude. How like players talk about how it doesn't perform the same. So Blade Tidwell, the righty from Tennessee, good fastball, needs some refinement. Has a 2-seamer he doesn't use a lot. I feel like it's something they're going to work on, but I think I like Blade Tidwell here. The other option I thought about is Landon Sims. Since you've got 2 prospects already, you can take him and let him heal a little bit. So I thought about Landon Sims here, but I think I'm going to go with Blade Tidwell instead. Probably a bad idea, but Blade Tidwell.
Man, and here's the thing. Like, I know there's going to be people out there calling us like morons because that's what happens with any mock. But in general, because like we let, I mentioned the prep arms are still on the board at this time. The Robbie Snelling's still out there. Jackson Ferris is still out there. But here's the thing. Every year, there are 2 to 3 that are still out there who just don't sign. That's what works. That's how Kumar Rocker got to college when him and Hankins were the top righties in that class. There are big names. This is inevitable. And I say all of this to say, I don't have one of the pitchers going here to the Padres. A player who I think is actually going to go higher than this, a player I've heard very positive things for, who's more of a team type of guy, one of those guys who goes higher because he's more valued to baseball teams than like the consensus or the industry, is Mikey Romero, the shortstop from Orange Lutheran. I've heard that there are a lot of teams who would like him to get to the second round. There are a lot of teams that kind of view, you want to look at a lot of what I talked about with Jet Williams. Mm-hmm. He's not that athlete, but like that ball to bat skills, the advanced approach, or even if you want to maybe compare him to, who's the other infielder? I'm blanking on the other infielder I had earlier, who's the son of a coach who went to Kansas City. 7-up.
Not Cross. Hang on. I got it here.
I can't remember because you were talking about how Dayton Moore would like the son of a coach.
Yeah.
But I think like he's got a lot of those things, and he's one of those guys that like I said, I think if he doesn't go in the first, he's going to go very early in the second. Shortstops rise. He's done it all at every level. He's faced getting late. He has faced. He's faced the best of the best in California. Orange Lutheran is always a top program. He's done it in the summer circuit. He's done it with Wood. He's done it with Metal. He's a no doubt shortstop. He has a all fields approach. He's really good at the plate. Like, if you told me that someone like the Guardians popped him at 16 on draft day, I wouldn't be shocked. Not at all. If you told me that he went let's see, if I go over and pull up, because I like to go to the MLB.com place because we know it's a bit of a consensus board. So I go there and pull up his name, and he is 62. I would be more shocked if he went 62 than if he went 16. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I can see him as being kind of a wild card in this draft, and somebody's going to make the call to go ahead and do that. And then obviously you have, it's like you said, these prep guys, you always have signability questions. There's always some of them just want to go to college, some of them, or they will come to your school if you have enough money for it. And so I think it's a good pick. I think that he can be a plus hitter. Needs to add a little strength, but he'll do that.
Yeah.
So
it's just crazy. We talked about the prep arms. How about Sterling Thompson, neither of us drafted, the Florida outfielder, or Brock Jones, who's finally playing well, the former Stanford football player.
Yeah.
This is what I meant, where after that top 11, it's the next 30 guys are kind of similar, about maybe in the next 40. You could see, I wouldn't be shocked anyone we didn't mention here went in the teens. These guys who just missed this cut, I wouldn't be shocked if any of them ended up going in the teens, because that's just kind of how this draft is this year. It's you're looking kind of at how these teams approach it more than anything else, because the talent is, after those top 11, I would argue, like I said, the next 30 to 40 guys are very much in line, and it's a matter of just picking your nits.
Yeah. Who has the one little trait you want, because they're all kind of around the same future value. So, okay. So, we're going to 3 shows for our draft here. This is your MLB draft week. But at the end of the 3, who is your favorite draft pick that you made? Not to put you on the spot here.
It's going to be someone late. As I just kind of look at the order of it, it's because you're always looking at value. It's the top picks are okay, but you're who is that guy where I kind of had a mix of value and fit. Honestly, I kind of think it's the Cardinals with Jet Williams, because to me, I put him 9th on my big board. I really believe in him as a player. I think his athleticism is just about in that top tier. And if he's not in that top tier with what his physical traits are, he's just a step below. And again, if he's not 5'8", if he is even 5'11", we're talking about him as a top 7 guy. We're talking about the top 6 as a top 7.
Right.
So I think, and we've seen with Oakland with Nick Allen, the value they got in taking a guy who was an undersized shortstop. And I'm a Guardians fan. This is, part of this is Locked On Guardians. Jose Ramirez is 5'8". If we're being honest here, it's guys can hit if they can hit. It's height. Yeah, it's helpful, but it's not necessarily the end all be all. So for me, that's my favorite. What about for you?
So it's a little bit different for me, but I think it's either Zach Neto to the Mariners or Cooper Yerpe to the Blue Jays. And it's just something where, Cooper, I didn't think he'd fall that far. I didn't think that it's just odd that the second college pitcher off the board is at 23.
Third, right? Prelip.
I'm sorry. I forgot about Prelip. Yeah. But it's it's just because there's so few healthy ones. So, but yeah, I like both of those picks. I think they're both good organizational fits with what the organizations like to do and what they want from their players. All right. If Locked On MLB Prospects fans want to check out more of your stuff and what you're doing, your draft stuff and your Guardian stuff, where can they find you?
Yeah, I don't unfortunately have the time to write anymore with 2 children and a day job. So most of my draft stuff ends up being on the podcast. You can find that for Locked On Guardians. You can, if you subscribe, I'll do my whole pitch. If you subscribe, you can watch the ones that are about the draft, and they'll all pop up for you when that comes. And I do about at least one college talk a week. Typically, that's my Wednesday wrap up. Doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it's on a Thursday, but it's always marked in the notes. You can go find it and watch that segment. But yeah, and then you can follow me on Jeff MLB Draft. Yes, it is Guardians heavy because, I'm a Guardians journalist now. That's what it's got to be. But the draft is still love. It's something I follow. It's something I do a lot with. Last year I had Carlos Collazo on the show 2 days before the draft. Brian Sikowski and I have been circling for months. We'll get some more draft people on the show. Burke Granger and I go back years and years as Ohio draft people when we were both complete unknowns, just out there doing it. And then, I'll see if I can get my old buddy Taylor Blake Ward at some point off the pine to drop in and talk.
There you go. For the Guardians fans, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. My show is on Twitter at Locked On MLB Prospects, wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, and you can find it on Twitter at Locked On Farm. Stick around. We're going to have more draft stuff coming up this year. See ya.